Imagine waking up in a glass house in the middle of the desert. The man you trusted is burning your passport and saying it's for your own good. Then he pushes you off a cliff. Most people would die. Most people would give up, but not her. This is revenge. By the end, she's not just surviving, she's coming back stronger, faster, and scarier than anyone could imagine. The movie starts like a high-end music video, colors popping and heat waves everywhere. We're in a remote, minimalist villa right in the middle of the Moroccan desert. It's a masterpiece of glass and steel, designed to look like a sanctuary, but as we'll soon see, it's actually a cage. We meet Richard, a wealthy, charismatic big shot who smells like old money and deep-seated secrets. He's here for his annual hunting trip with his two friends, but he didn't show up alone this time. Jen. Jen is what you'd call a blonde goddess. She's young, she's vibrant, and she lives for attention. She thinks this is a romantic getaway, a private escape where she can dance in her star-shaped earrings and dream about a life in Los Angeles. She thinks Richard is her ticket to the big leagues, but there's a hard truth Richard hasn't mentioned. And what starts as a fantasy escape is about to turn into something far more dangerous than any of them expect. Back home, he has a clueless wife and kids who think he's away on a boring business trip. To him, Jen isn't a partner, she's a cheat sheet, a temporary luxury he's enjoying before the real hunt begins. The next morning, the friends arrive early and the vibe shifts instantly. Stan and Dimitri aren't like Richard. They're grimy, they're crude, and they look at Jen like she's just another piece of game to be tracked. Dimitri is a total creep, watching her through binoculars while she's just trying to enjoy the sun by the pool. You can feel the tension in the air. It's that cold feeling you get right before something goes horribly wrong. That night, the group breaks out a gift from Richard's pilot, peyote. It's a powerful hallucinogen. Richard warns them that it's dangerous and it can make you lose control. But the boys don't mind playing with fire. Jen takes a piece by the magic toy and hides it in her locket, the one piece of jewelry that never leaves her neck. The music blares, the wine flows, and Jen puts on a show, grinding on Stan just to make Richard jealous. It's a tactical move, a game of vibe and ego. But Stan, he isn't playing a game. He's staring at her with eyes that says he's already decided she belongs to him. By morning, the summer vibes are gone. Richard steps out on an errand, leaving Jen alone with the two predators. This is where the mundane setup turns into a desperate spiral. Stan starts acting passive-aggressive, cornering Jen in the kitchen, claiming that because of how she danced the night before, she owes him something. He's not a gentleman. He's a brute. When Jen tries to run, the house, this glass villa, turns into a trap. Dimitri walks in, sees her crying, sees what's happening, and what does he do? He turns on the TV, goes for a peaceful swim, just ignores it. It's a brutal reminder out here in the desert. There are no real witnesses, just people who stay quiet to protect themselves. When Richard finally gets back, he immediately senses the vibe has shifted to something dark. Stan just shrugs it off like it's nothing, acting like it's just a slap on the wrist situation. Richard rushes to Jen, but he doesn't call the chopper. He doesn't try to help. Instead, he offers her money, tries to buy her silence with a job in Canada and a stack of cash, like her trauma is just some kind of business deal he can settle. When Jen refuses to play along, when she threatens to tell his wife back home, Richard's perfect guy image shatters. He slaps her across the face, dazing her, and chases her out into the blinding hot sun. They reach the edge of a massive canyon, a drop that looks like the end of the world. Richard looks her in the eye, blames her beauty for his own choices, and pushes her. She falls. She doesn't just hit the ground, she lands on the jagged branch from a dead tree. It goes straight through her gut, a brutal and desperate sight. Richard and his friends look down from the cliff, watching the blood pool in her mouth. They think it's over. They think they've cleaned up the mess and can go back to their lives. Let me ask you this. When someone's got nothing to lose, do they stay a victim or turn into a nightmare? Jen wakes up and everything's just plain, like a cold shock hitting her body. She can barely move. She's bleeding, covered in ants, just staring up at the sky like it doesn't even care if she lives or dies. But still, she's got her lighter and her earphone. Somehow, she manages to start a fire in a dry bush. She frees herself from the branch. And this is where everything changes. She isn't the same person anymore. She's not just a victim. She's a survivor who has tasted her own death and decided it wasn't for her. Now the hunt begins, but the roles have flipped. The three men are looking for a corpse, but they are going to find a ghost. Jen drags herself to a cave, her body covered with scars and dried blood. She's still high on the peyote she forced down her throat, hallucinating eagles and shifting shadows. She takes a beer can, cuts it open, and uses the metal to seal her own wound. She presses the red-hot metal against her skin, branding herself with a makeshift tattoo, an eagle with the word beer scribbled on it. It's the ultimate vibe of transformation. First up is Dimitri. He finds her by the lake, thinking he's caught a broken bird he can deal with himself. He tries to drown her, dragging out the torture, but Jen has found a new strength. She swaps his own knife, driving it into his shoulder and then, with a cold precision, straight through his eye. She watches the life leave him and lets his body drift away like the trash he was. Then comes Stan. He's the one who started the physical nightmare. Jen tracks him across the dunes, her hair messy, her body stripped down to the bare essentials of a warrior. She's dragging her leg, but her aim is becoming legit scary. She shoots him in the shoulder. As he tries to flee, he falls into a trap. Shards of broken flashlight carve a canyon-sized deep cut in the sole of his foot. He's screaming, crying, realizing the blonde goddess is now the predator. When he finally reaches the car, thinking the nightmare is over, Jen puts a bullseye round through the glass. The corpse falls out of the door and the silence of the desert returns. Now, there is only one man left, Richard. And what's coming next isn't survival anymore. It's something much more personal. Richard is back at the villa. He is a mess of dirt and desperate thoughts. He thinks he can still fix this. He calls the pilot, Roberto, and lies through his teeth. He says the others had urgent matters and he needs the chopper to pick him up in 30 minutes. He shuffles to the bathroom like a zombie, letting the water run, trying to wash away the sins of the last 48 hours. But a sudden sound interrupts his shower. He's on high alert, grabbing his gun and aiming at the door, but no one barges in. He checks the entire house, naked and shivering, finding nothing but the toy car floating in the pool. He settles onto the couch for a second, trying to catch his breath, when the TV suddenly turns on. Jen shows up the same way Stan once did, behind the colorful glass, silent and armed. Richard just stares, wondering if this is another hallucination. But then she fires. The shot hits and he drops onto the rug, and in that moment, he realizes this is very real. The final act isn't a clean cinematic shootout. It's a cat-and-mouse game through the glass hallways of his villa. They are both slipping, leaving trails of blood across the floor. Richard is weak, but he's still a monster. He manages to move through the mess, trying to catch her at a corner. He scrambles through the kitchen, trying to find something, just looking for one last chance to win. They collide in the hallway. Jen slips, losing her grip on the rifle. Richard finds her, grabs her by the leg, and pulls her into a chokehold. He's yelling, calling her names, trying to justify what he did, but he gives her too much time to think. She digs her fingers deep into his open wound. He screams, losing his grip, and she grabs her weapon. One final shot, and finally he pays the price. As the sound of the approaching chopper fills the air, Jen walks past his body and steps out onto the deck. The hard truth of this story is that you can't automate justice, and you can't predict what a human heart will do when it's cornered. Richard and his friends built a world where they were the kings, where beauty was just a commodity to be used and discarded. They didn't realize that when you strip a human being of their dignity, their safety, and their future, all you're doing is unleashing a darkness that is far more brutal than the desert itself. The scariest part isn't the blood or the violence. It's the realization that some people only call it progress when they're the ones holding the knife. Richard looked at a broken system and called it a hunting trip, just so he could sleep at night. But in the end, the desert doesn't care about your money or your excuses. It only cares about who has the mercy to admit their darkness and who is left standing when the dust settles. If this revenge thriller had you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense movie breakdowns. Stay tuned. See you in the next one.